disclaimer, this is not any specific recommendations or advice. It's meant to be educational, and hopefully you find it valuable. But it's, if if you really want advice, find, a financial advisor, tax professional, or attorney. And then can everybody give me a thumbs up that you're agree that I can post these for free for people to um, download and view on the website and YouTube. And obviously I don't charge for this, so I don't. So the first question is, do you contribute at least enough to 401k? Bill, I know active, you're not BRS, I'm sure you're traditional, so there is no match. But let's see, so nearly half get at least the full match, and nearly half actually contribute to the max, which is great. One said no. I'm not sure if that's because there's not a match or if they're just not contributing enough, but if not, that's just throwing free money away. So we'll get to that. Not recommended. Number two, if you don't max out your 401k contributions, have you set up auto increase? One hands, half haven't. And people said, how the heck do you do that? If it's Viasat, or if you wanted, I could probably walk you through it, but where you go to your contributions page for whatever your 401k or TSP custodian, typically in that, there's, along with adjusting whether you want traditional pre-tax and or Roth and what's split, there's a little check mark for auto increase, which does, and a lot of them you can do it either 1% or 0.5% every 6 months or every year. So, but that's a great way because you won't notice 1% if you're not already max contributing. And then let's see, have you increased your investment savings for 2025? About half have, about half have not. One person said, I don't know, get off me. Not every military, they're getting raises. I mean, some companies, I know Viasat hasn't gotten that raise comes about June, I believe timeframe since we've merged with Inmarsat. But if you've got inflation adjustment, the whole key is like, don't spend your whole raise, try to pay yourself first on some of that. IRA, next question, do you have an IRA? Most people do have a Roth, and a little less than half have both. I think most people will need both long term. Actually, you will. I'm certain. But a lot right now, especially when you're transitioning from the military and you get a new job, you're likely going to be over the income limits to contribute directly to a Roth. So you need to have a traditional IRA where you can contribute to that and then immediately backdoor it, convert it to Roth and have it grow tax-free. We'll get into that. And the concerns if you have a bunch of pre-tax money in a traditional IRA. But most should all have both. And also for later, when you're rolling 401k money into an IRA, a lot of that's probably pre-tax, so you want that to go to a traditional IRA, and then you control the conversion to Roth. Okay, number 5, do you max out your IRA contributions annually? A third said yes, 2/3 said no. That's more important to me. To me, get the max match on the 401k first, because that's free money. But after that, load up that IRA. There's better investment options, there's lower fees, max out that IRA, and then go back to 401k and like brokerage account and start loading that up more. But that's, to me, it's get the match, ESPP, other free money, always take that, but then get your IRA max funded, then go back to the 401k. And if you have any questions, you can help me, but that's kind of my hierarchy of saving and investing part of it. Have you max funded your IRA for 2024? And that's why I did this today instead of waiting later. A third have not, and a third said they will before tax day. So you do need to contribute that, by 4/15, otherwise that window closes. And that's, $7,000 both in 2024 and 2025. If you turned 50 in 2024, you get an extra $1,000 catch-up contributions, and that's the same for 2025 as well. Let's see. And do you have an HSA? Most people I expected don't, just because a lot of people on here are retired military. You cannot open an HSA, but people that haven't, it's a great retirement savings vehicle. It's actually the best one, really, as far as tax advantages. And then lastly, if you do have an HSA, do you spend the money um, yearly or invest it? And one third said they invest all of it and pay out of pocket, which is the ideal way to use an HSA. And then some say spend some or invest and invest the rest. If you can come out of pocket and just save your receipts, that's the best way to do an HSA, because it grows tax deferred, and if you use it on anything medical, it's tax-free growth as well. It's like the benefits of a traditional and Roth IRA. And so and you could let that compound for 30, 50, whatever years, and pay for receipts that you saved to a Google Drive or something years later. So it's beautiful.
Alan,
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, but for retired DoD people or anybody that has TRICARE because they did 20 years in one of the services, if you have Blue Cross and TRICARE, then you cannot get HSA.
Correct. You can. It's just because because we have TRICARE, you cannot.
Yeah.
Retired military cannot contribute to an HSA because we have healthcare. I mean, it's not a bad problem to have. The fact
No,
that we
it's
have,
not. But the caveat is when you do turn 65,
yep.
and you either have to opt in or opt out of Medicare Part A and Part B.
You don't. No, you don't. You have to opt in. Even retired military has to switch to Medicare, and then you get TRICARE for life, which is the supplement to Medicare. But that's something they don't teach you in the military well.
Yeah, I went through a year of research to figure this out. So I turned 65 this past year. I did not opt in
because you're working. You still have
because I'm working. So so I don't have to pay a penalty. I won't incur like an additional amount every month that I don't opt in. But I'm now eligible for an HSA because if you do not opt into Part A and B, then the government takes your TRICARE away. You lose TRICARE if you don't opt in for Medicare.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And you will use and that's true. So that's because he's employed still. If he wasn't, you have to take Medicare when you're 65, and then instead of what we have as TRICARE as a retiree, you get TRICARE for life, which is a supplement. It's probably the best supplement to Medicare, but it's a supplement, and we do have to pay Medicare premiums, which sucks.
Most of you aren't close to 65, but when you start to get there, you got to think about that because Medicare goes back 2 years to price your Medicare Part B plan. And if you're doing well and you have a pension through the Marine Corps, then my Part B was going to cost me about $570 a month.
Yep, exactly. And there are certain things though that when I look back, like there is other things like retirement, things like that, where they'll say, okay, they'll relook, and say, okay, but you're right. And that's something, that's why I bring up, because IRMA, which is the monthly premium for Medicare, it's a tax and it's significant. And especially for retired military, it's to me, it's kind of jacked up that we don't learn this when we're going through, that we're going to have to pay this stuff, and exactly, if the better you're doing, it can get really expensive. And that's what sucks about not being able to have an HSA, because an HSA, you can use that money to pay for Medicare premiums. So, okay, here's the agenda. Thanks, Randy. Anybody have any questions from that discussion or? Okay, so we'll quickly go over some Secure 2.0 changes. The Congress keeps making updates to this. Secure 2.0 was like in 2019 they did this, and then they've been updating it. So required minimum distributions, that's when for just the pre-tax portion, both Roth 401k and IRAs, you don't have required minimum distributions. But for pre-tax 401k, TSP, IRAs, Uncle Sam wants their money, and so you got to start taking money out of your traditional 401k and start paying it. They've pushed out these dates, so most everybody here 1960 or later, RMDs start at 75. The good thing about that is you have longer time to do Roth conversions before you hit age 75. So you have an even smaller, hopefully, bucket in your traditional portion, pre-tax portion, that you'd have to take RMDs on. They did remove lowered the penalty. I don't think this is really a good deal because I don't know anybody that really actually paid a 50% penalty. Now I'm wondering if they're actually going to have to pay, but the key is take your RMDs. That's just silly not to, but that's a problem with mental capacity, I'd say as well. As people age, that might be the reason they're not, just don't. So anyway, like I said, 3 more years of Roth conversions, and can put more into tax deferred now, and avoid those, hopefully overall pay Uncle Sam less in taxes lifetime. Okay, other things, you can roll part of 429 money into a Roth IRA. It's a lifetime limit of 35K. It doesn't mean you can do all 35K in a year. You're still limited whatever Roth you're contributing to that total 7,000, and $100,000 catch-up contribution. But there's a number of restrictions on it. Has to been open at least 15 years, et cetera. But this is a great thing if people put all this money into a 529, and then the children don't need it, and there's nobody else to pass it on to. So let's see. Okay, this is what came out recently about this. So anybody that's inherited IRAs, in 2019 when they came out, they got rid of the stretch IRA for basically pretty much all non-spouse beneficiaries. If you inherited one back in 2019, you still could stretch it out for the length of your lifetime, but now it's not. But then there was a question like, okay, we had to empty this within 10 years, but do you have to do RMDs every year of those 10 years? Do you have to take money out, or do you just have to take it all out by the end of the 10th year? So we'll go into a couple there's different rules for different types of beneficiaries. Most non-spouse beneficiaries are non-eligible, and they're stuck with this 10-year rule. But then for eligible designated beneficiaries, surviving spouses, disabled person, chronically ill, and they actually have minor children. So kids up till 18 can stretch it, but then once they turn 18, that 10-year rule comes into effect, and it goes back to when they first got it. So kind of interesting. But and then there's people within 10 years, which is interesting. So if somebody passed away and their sibling inherited, they can stretch it out to the length of their lifetime. The question really came though, do you have to take RMDs? And it really comes down to whoever IRA was, or 401k, if they were at age where they had to take RMDs, then the beneficiary has to take RMDs. Because it wasn't clear for 21 through 24 that it was fine. They said no big deal. You don't have to, but starting in 2025, you have to start taking RMDs, and it doesn't mean you need to take up in 2025 the value of the RMDs from 21 through 24, but that 10-year clock still comes into play. So but within 10 years, you've got to empty that account out. Okay, I went through that pretty quick, and I don't know if anybody's impacted by this, but it's very important if you are. Okay. And there's a...
Does that include the year of death, Alan?
What's that?
Does that include the year that the person died?
Yes, if they hadn't taken the RMD.
Got it. All
If they
right.
had taken the RMD, you don't have to. But if they hadn't, yes, you do. Good question. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we kind of chatted about this, but most people aren't eligible in this in our group, but you can stretch those out. Okay, now we'll go into more of the topics. Here's the retirement investing vehicles that everybody should use and take advantage of. I made up my own little icons for these just to help describe what they are. The 401k I consider a dump truck because you can put way more money in there in a tax advantage account than you can in anything else. Savings account, I said that's a fire truck because you can use it immediately if you need to, but with proper planning, pay for your stuff out of pocket, especially when you're young and you don't need much medical. just save and invest that money and then pay yourself back, years and years later when it's doubled, many times over. IRA, it's sports utility vehicle because it's versatility, and that's kind of ultimately where you'll probably have everything downrange, likely into much of your other accounts. The brokerage account, I call it a tow truck because there's no penalty on pulling out money early. You just pay. It's not as tax advantaged. You pay for taxes throughout the each year on dividends and things, and if you sell anything, the capital gains, but there's no penalty, so you can use that money, and that bridges you. A tow truck, it pulls you to 59.5 when you can use your take money penalty free from your IRA, 401k, etc. And then Social Security, I put that as a civic because it's reliable. But I cut it in um, everybody's worried about the trust fund going away, and Elon Musk calling it a freaking Ponzi scheme. It's not going away. There's no way. Too many people are dependent on Social Security. And so there's all sorts of levers they can pull. Congress is freaking ridiculous and stupid that they're not already doing some of that, but they need to. And even if all people stopped working, though, people need to understand for Social Security, you don't pay into an account and then a savings account that you're taking out later. You're paying, and that money is going to pay for current people that are on Social Security. But even if that trust fund goes away, like they're expecting in 2035 or whatever, 77% of Social Security is still funded by workers. So that's why I chopped it down a little bit. Like if you want to, you could assume you're only going to get 2/3, but you're gonna have Social Security. I just don't see it can't go away. The too many people, and those are the voters. The old people are the ones that vote. Okay, so we'll go into 401k. Any questions on those? No. Okay, so how much can you contribute a year out of your paycheck in 2025? How much can you contribute? Anyone?
2025, 2,400, 24,000?
20 gets close. 23,500. Yep. And if you're the year you turn 50, you don't have to be 50 yet, but if you turn that year, how much extra can you do for catch up? $7,500. And then it's even higher. It's 11,000 and change, 11,250 for people between 60 and 63. They can contribute even more additionally. But if you look under that umbrella, it allows up to 70K. How the hell are you going to get that money in? Aside from you've got your employee elected deferrals, which is 23.5, and then your company match, which fits into that. That still leaves a lot. But how are you going to be able to do that? So there are some companies have different profit sharing where they could, but the key is we'll get into the make it back to a Roth. But if the plan offers after-tax contributions and in-service distributions, you can contribute above that limit salary deferral of 23,500 and get close to that max. And that's going in it goes in after tax, so it's not, even though it's after tax, it's not technically Roth, but the in-service distribution allows it to become Roth either in your Roth 401k, or you can roll it to a IRA. And some companies specifically, you set it up, and as soon as that money goes in, it's converted to Roth. So that's what you want. Another way is if you have a side business, and it's especially if you're a solopreneur. A solo 401k makes the most sense just if you have your own company and no employees. And there you can contribute, aside from, you could do the same salary deferral if you were just self-employed of 23,500, but you can also give yourself the salary you can give yourself from the employer 25% more. So it's the best vehicle for getting close to that match if you have the money to do that. Any questions there?
What if you're 64? You don't get the 81.25?
No, you're back to. I know, isn't it ridiculous? Like,
Yeah.
why is it 60? Like, why not why not allow people at 55?
Yeah.
Like what's the, so anyway, and I don't, Randy, I don't know. I wonder almost if because of when the average retirement is, like age, I don't know. It seems stupid, but yeah, it's 60 to 63. So okay, let's see. Yep. So here we'll go into that. This is just showing what that mega backdoor Roth does, and Viasat's getting it where their Empower's just, we've been pushing them, and fortunately they finally agreed, and Empower is just getting the back end of their system together so that we can contribute. And they were supposed to have it out this quarter. We'll see. I haven't seen an email yet, but I expect at least hopefully in April we'll see something. But you can see, I mean, look at how much, I just gave an example of what we could do at Viasat if we did our max deferral and you got the max match. You could, you're still leaving, you still got, nearly 35, double that on the table, left on the table if you don't have the, so it's a great thing to have in the 401k plan. But this, you do need to contribute by the end of the year, unlike the IRA. Okay. Fortunately, there was only one person, I'm guessing that was somebody that's military, but before I've seen people don't contribute to, like, don't get their free money, their match. And so I gave an example of, just for easy numbers, let's say assuming a salary of 100K, and for where at Viasat, you need to contribute 10% to get the 5% match. But if you don't contribute that 10%, if you only contribute 8%, you're throwing away $1,000 of free money. You don't contribute at all. That's $5,000. You're just throwing away. I mean, if I see a 20 on the ground or 10, I keep it. Amazing how many what percentage of people do not contribute though to get their full match. It's sad. If you can't contribute that, you need to check your spending and figure out how to save more to get that free money. Okay, and then there's people ask me a lot. One of the nice things about the 401k is creditors can't even touch it. Like, you could go bankrupt and still be a millionaire in your 401k. They can't touch it. But the reason pensions worked is because people couldn't spend it. This idea of taking loans out on your 401k is not a good idea. It's meant for retirement. So if you think you want to take a 401k, we can do some counseling if you need. But here's the age-related rules associated with the 401k. You withdraw before 59 and a half, you pay income tax and a 10% penalty. That's not exactly 100% true in reality. So if you retire from a company the year you turn 55 or later, there's something called the rule of 55, where you can use the money in that 401k penalty free, like you're already 59 and a half. And let's say you just started that company and you've only got 10,000 in there. Well, you could roll other TSP or 401k money into that 401k plan, and then it all counts in that because it's in that 401k plan, and you could use that money. So that's another, speaking of like the brokerage account being a tow truck to pull you to 59 and a half, the rule of 55 is another way where you can use the actual retirement accounts before 59 and a half, penalty free. Let's see, required minimum distributions. The IRS, they want their money, so they're going to force you to start taking money out a percentage at a time. Most of us, it's going to be for, once we turn 75. And then there's a 5-year rule on Roth 401k earnings. So you can't pull that money out without paying tax on it unless it's been there 5 years. There's several 5-year rules, but I won't get too nasty into those. We could probably do its own little talk on that stuff. But if you don't have that, if you don't have a Roth 401k started or Roth TSP, move some money in. Like, put some so that you start that clock. It's just stupid not to, just like a Roth IRA. Next year, in 2026, for TSP, they're actually going to be able, you can actually do in-plan conversions. So instead of having to roll a TSP, like say you had it all in traditional pre-tax money, you don't have to roll it all into something else now. You can start doing in-plan conversions in the TSP account and get money moved over to Roth. So especially, I know people that served much earlier. I mean, I think they only started Roth contributions to TSP in 2013. So I know a lot of people, were just stuck with traditional portions. Okay, here's just some numbers, like seeing what this is going to go into RMDs and that importance, why we're talking also about Roth conversions. So I just ran some numbers, assuming somebody contributed 23,000 for 30 years. That's a lot, but and you made 8% return over at average over those 30 years. You'd have nearly 3 million as a single person. If you continue to grow at 4%, say you're getting much more conservative, in forced retirement, but don't spend it, it would be worth 4.25 million by the time you're 75 and have to start taking RMDs. And then the amount of your RMD, you have to look at the balance on December 31st, and then your life expectancy, which will go into here. Here's a table that shows what percentage you're using. So if you look at it, you take that RMD of, that account value of 4.25 million divided by 24.6, and that's, you have to pull out 172.6K, and that's income. So that's taxable money that you have to pay. That's why it's important to start doing Roth conversions earlier so that you're in control of how much taxes you pay and not the IRS. So, okay. Here's left the company. Here's what we can do. Like, if you leave the company, what are you going to do with that 401k? Do you leave it there? You can roll it into an IRA. I don't recommend rolling it into an IRA until you're done, you're finally retired, because we'll go into the backdoor Roth conversion. So usually, like especially with TSP, just keep it there. It's cheaper, likely, and as far as administrative costs and things like that. So just leave TSP, just make sure it's invested wisely is probably the best move. And then downrange, when you fully retire, then there's considerations of, do I put it into an IRA, et cetera, roll it into a new 401k plan, or no, don't withdraw it and pay a penalty. That's just throwing money in the trash. Okay. Here's the health savings account, which I know most of you can't do this because you're retired military, but for people that can, this is the best retirement savings vehicle there is, because it's actually not even triple tax advantage. If it comes out of your paycheck like it does at Viasat, it's quadruple tax advantage because you also don't pay FICA taxes. So you don't pay, granted in California, California sucks. They still tax you, but you don't pay the federal tax, you don't pay FICA taxes. It grows tax deferred, and if you use it years later for anything medical related, it's all that growth is tax free. So it's like the benefits of it having a traditional and a Roth at the same time. It's amazing. If you don't use it on medical, which would be stupid, because everybody's going to have medical costs at some point, whether it's Medicare premiums or whatever, you can use it like a traditional IRA once you turn 65. So you then have to pay taxes on those gains, so you'd ruin the Roth portion of it, but you still could use it that way. There's an FSA for people that use an HSA. You can also use a limited use FSA, which a flexible spending account. That's an account that it's also comes out tax free, but it's use it or lose it. You have to use it in that year, and usually it's like a couple of months. Like for us, by July 31st, even though our benefit date starts May 1st, you have to use it or you lose it. But there's all sorts of ways you can use that money if it's, if all you have is FSA. But if you have an HSA, you can't use an FSA on medical. but you can use it on dental and vision. So if you figure out what you need, what you think you're going to need in terms of dental and vision for the year, it's a great, it's you know, you're still saving, especially in California, over 30% because that money's tax free. And you can use it on that, and then you're less likely to have to use that HSA money. So just a thought. Any questions here? Okay. The IRA, this is, like I said, this is your best tax advantage. It used to be the only one, the Roth IRA, that you didn't have to take RMDs, but fortunately, since 2024, with the secure changes, you don't have to take RMDs on Roth 401k either. But that's why, this is why, because of these, like, its flexibility, investing options, and distribution rules, that's why I say max that out after you get your 401k match, then go back after you've maxed out your IRA to go and try to max fund, your 401k, and your brokerage account, get that going up. And the beautiful thing is this one, you can pay up till, you can contribute up to tax day. So some of you, if you might have tax refund, that's money right there. You could, if you've already got that, shove that in your IRA, and before that window closes, because that's tax-free growth, especially in the Roth, which is I'm a big fan of. Tax-free growth forever. So you try to get as much as you can in before that window closes in 2 weeks. Here's the income limits though for individual retirement accounts. So for a Roth IRA, and this is why I say most people need both a Roth and a traditional, one of the reasons. Second reason is later on when you want to roll a 401k into an IRA, if you got pre-tax money, you want to roll that into a traditional IRA and then convert, strategically to Roth over time. But the contribution limits for a Roth IRA, I mean, single 150, 165, married's even worse, only 236 to 246. That might, in Mississippi, that's good, but not in California. So, and even worse though, a traditional IRA, if you have an employer plan that you're participating in, it's even lower. Look at that, 79 to 89K. If your salary's above that, you cannot contribute a tax deductible contribution to a traditional IRA. And then it would be screwed up because you'd have basis on your money in there, but then what grows would be taxable. I don't even know if companies figure that out properly or if you're just going to pay too much tax. So that's where the backdoor Roth comes in very importantly. If you only have, if you don't have an employer plan, there's no income limit to do a tax deductible traditional IRA contribution. But I'm a big fan of Roth, and you should be too. So here we'll go into what a Roth backdoor Roth IRA conversion is, and you have to do a non-deductible contribution to the traditional IRA. This Michael Kitces, who's like the baddest brain in financial planning, he was saying, hey, you should wait till December to convert it. Don't do that. Just once the money settles, we've verified this with the IRS and Congress. They agree this is legal and the smart way to do it. Contribute to the non-deductible to the traditional IRA. As soon as it settles, it usually takes a couple of days, then immediately convert that IRA money to a Roth IRA. You pay no taxes because it's just after-tax money you've used, like from your checking or savings account, right? And then you move that cash directly over to your Roth, then you invest it, and you pay tax-free growth forever. It's beautiful, but if there's a problem with the pro rata rule, if you have and this is, I don't care if you try to open up a new traditional IRA, if you've got pre-tax money in a traditional IRA, the IRS is going to account for that because it aggregates all of the money. So in this example, what I'm showing is, okay, so let's say you have either a traditional IRA or you rolled pre-tax money from a 401k or TSP into a traditional IRA, you got 93,000 that's never been taxed. Then you do like, I'm going to do above income limits, but I'm going to do a backdoor Roth. So you do your 7,000 contribution Well, as soon as you put that 7,000 in, it's like creamer in a coffee. It all mixes together, and that's how the IRS sees it. So how they see it is 93% of that money hasn't been taxed. So even if you just try to convert 7,000 of it, the after-tax money that you just contributed, they're going to tax you on 93% of it. So you don't. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose of doing a backdoor Roth IRA conversion. But there is ways, if you did that, if you moved and you're still employed where you have a 401k, you could roll that money from a traditional IRA. If you'd rolled it, say you'd rolled money from a 401k to a traditional IRA, you could roll that money back into your current employer's plan. Then you have no pre-tax money in an IRA, and you could do the backdoor Roth. That makes sense. I know that's probably kind of confusing.
No, I'm lost, but that's okay.
What's that?
I said I'm lost, but that's okay.
I think I am too.
So if you okay, hey, Randy, Veronica, let's say you took your TSP from before, and it was just pre-tax, and you said I'm going to put this in a traditional IRA, and you did, you rolled it in there. Now, and let's say you just had 93K, that's the 93K of pre-tax money I'm talking about. And then if you try to, we talked about doing a backdoor Roth, you're above the income limits for a Roth IRA, so you can't contribute directly to a Roth IRA. You have to contribute non-deductible to a traditional IRA, and then you convert it to Roth. The problem is, even if you only convert that 7,000 for this year's contributions, the IRS aggregates all your traditional IRAs. And so you've got $100,000 in traditional IRAs, but 93,000 of those dollars have not been taxed. So the IRS, even though you're trying to just convert the 7,000 you already paid, that's after tax money, they don't see it that way. They see it's just like creamer in a coffee. It's $100,000 and you haven't paid taxes on 93% of that. So you convert whatever portion you convert, you're going to pay taxes on 93% of those dollars. Okay.
I guess in a perfect world, what would that look like? Clearing the traditional account and getting the 7K clean by itself.
Exactly. So, and if you did that, that's what I was saying. If you had moved that, because you're like, oh, I'm going to move my TSP to a traditional IRA. Now it's your company that you're at with the 401k plan. You could re-roll that money in the traditional IRA, that pre-tax money, into your current employer's 401k. Then that 93,000K of pre-tax money is gone, and you don't have any pre-tax money in your IRA. Now you can do that tax-free, the conversion of 7,000, and keep doing that every year while you're working, because you need income in order to contribute to an IRA anyway. Then once you stop working officially, that's when that's when you'd roll money into your traditional IRA and start doing the slower conversions, Roth conversions over time.
So,
does that make?
Thanks, Veronica. That helped. So let me ask this last question.
Yep.
Can I take an inherited RA that has RMDs on it? Can I take that RMD every year and do what you're talking about?
That you cannot, unfortunately. But you could. You could, because you're taking that money out, right?
Yeah, I'm going to pay taxes on the
RMD. What I'm saying, I guess, is here's the thing. What you need to do, Randy, there is, if you took that RMD, that's money in whatever now, a brokerage account, right?
Yeah.
So you could use that money to fund your traditional IRA and then backdoor it, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
It's just different sands of money in a sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't just that's.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to avoid a bigger tax burden every year because I have to take the RMD. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's hard, and that's where, yeah, it's in a sense it's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I get it, but
Think of some
that's
way, let me know.
okay. And that's hard. The better thing to do with inherited is that's working with the whole family. And as people are aging and maybe not even spending as much, start converting, so them doing those Roth conversions over time, so that their beneficiaries don't get that huge tax bill while
Yeah,
they're working, and they've got to take these additional RMDs. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, and that's where proper plan, not proper, good planning, you can help, really help the family out much better. So
yeah.
it goes into another book we've talked about, but Die with Zero. It's a great book, and it talks about like giving your money. You're think about it, Randy. When did you need your money from that you inherited? Not when you're 65. You
Yeah,
needed that
30.
years
Yeah,
ago. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so anyway, it's a great book, talking about life experiences, and especially for people that are good savers. It's good because you might be saving for a rainy day. Yes, you need to save for a good retirement, but life is about experiences too. And if you're just saving, then you're dying with the fattest wallet isn't winning. Um, okay. Any other questions on this? This pro rata stuff's kind of confusing, I know, but
Wait, I had
think so.
one
Yep.
question. If you go back one slide, so there's that like tax, oh, maybe one more. There's a limit, income limit.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're saying with the traditional IRA, so say you're above this limit, right?
Yep.
You contribute 100K to your traditional IRA. At the end of the year, you move that to like your company's 401K, and then you contribute 7K to the Roth. Is that right?
Okay, so first, you can't contribute 100K to you can only contribute. Okay, yes,
whatever the money
you roll the
thing you're-
401K or something
Yeah.
into a traditional IRA. Yes, what you could do then is just roll that money into your current 401K plan. Then that pre-tax money is no longer in a traditional IRA, and then you can contribute the after-tax money into the traditional IRA, non-deductible, convert it, pay zero taxes because there's no growth.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So say that last part again.
Okay, so you convert you contribute the 7,000 from your checking account or say whatever, in of cash, it's all after tax, into a traditional IRA, non-deductible contribution. So you do not on your taxes, make that then as soon as that money settles in like 2 days, it takes typically, then you go into that, whatever your Fidelity or whatever, your custodian is, do a Roth conversion of that entire amount, 7,000, into Roth.
So if you do it that way, these income limits like don't matter to you? Matter?
Nope.
Okay. That's what I want to confirm.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that's how you get around the income limits and still be able to contribute to a Roth and have that tax-free growth. So you just moved. So it's a silly game, but you put $7,000 in, you convert it to Roth, invest it, and then it grows tax-free forever.
Gotcha.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And keep the account open, because usually most accounts, when you do that, it'll say when you convert the whole amount of your traditional IRA, it'll say, do you want to close or keep the account open? Keep it open, because the next year you're going to do the same thing. And this is where what I like to do personally, I contribute dollar cost average into a high yield savings account throughout the year, like for 2025, how much I dollar cost average into a Roth. And that goes kind of more towards my emergency fund. Then January 1st of next year, I put the entire amount in one day, because time in the market is more important than timing the market. So I put in all that money January 1st, or the first Monday, the markets are open in the new year, maximize my contributions for that year, and then immediately convert it. And then I don't have to think about doing any more conversions. All the money's in there in one day. I, convert it all, invest it, and then move on. Make sense?
Thanks.
Yep. Welcome. Okay. We're running a little bit. I'm gonna skip these rules. We can talk about these, but there's all sorts of rules of 5-year rules with Roth IRAs. whether you're less than 59.5 above, since we're already within 10 minutes, we can talk about that later if anybody wants to stay on. Brokerage account, like I said, this is the tow truck because you contribute. This is a lot of times what people also use for down payments on a house. You know, if you're looking out down range, you have a brokerage account. If some people don't even know if they have one, but if you're at a company that has like employee stock purchase plan and RSUs, you have a brokerage account already. But I would open up the brokerage account at the same company that you have your IRA at, and because and then even you can move your ESPP and RSUs to that same custodian that you use as well. And here's, let's see, some people that work at nonprofits or state certain organizations, they have it's actually a deferred comp program, but it's called a 457, and it's the same contribution limits as like a 401k, but they'll typically have, it's a 403b and a 457. 403b is basically the same as a 401k, but this is the beauty of, you can double up your contributions. Like people that you work at UCSD, the largest employer in San Diego, they have access to a 457, and you contribute just like you can Roth or traditional into this, but then you can pull the money out whenever you want. There's no rule limit on being 59.5 to, there's no penalty to pull it out earlier. So it's a great, additional tax advantage vehicle for your retirement. Okay, here's a couple things about how do you get money out before 59.5. I put the FIRE Roth conversion ladder. So what you can do is you can take money, convert it to Roth, take money for pre-tax money in a traditional IRA, convert it to Roth. You got to wait 5 years though, and then once those 5 years are up, that money's available to be withdrawn if you wanted to. Rule of 55, we already talked about. If you retire from a company at the year you turn 55 or later, you can take that money, you can use that money in your 401k, and you could roll money from previous employers into that 401k to make it a larger pot if you need to. 72T, the substantial equal periodic payments. This one I'm not a fan of in general, because you're required to do this a minimum of 5 years and until you're 59.5, whichever is longer. But if you get a down market, you could be screwed taking out money when you really don't want to. So I'm not a fan of that. And there's smarter ways if you're planning ahead of time with a brokerage account and other things to fund retirement ahead of 59.5. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this one, and hopefully people that now are, at least in our group, aren't thinking about just taxes today, because it's about lifetime tax management, and that's what we're talking about, RMDs, and like Randy was bringing up, even inherited IRAs. It's something you gotta plan for long term, and so here's some ways to do that are, hey, we're still in low tax rates, and I'm guessing based on the new administration, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act won't sunset next year. So we'll probably keep these same rates. Who knows what the hell's going to happen though? It's pretty insane right now. But the gap years, that's the time between when you retire and you have to start taking RMDs. So as I said, that's 75 for nearly everybody here. During those years when your income is much less, I mean, granted, most people will have some pension, but your income, when you're such a much lower tax bracket than when you're earning at an employer, that's when you start taking some of that traditional money from a 401k, pre-tax money, and start converting it up to a certain tax bracket limit. So you get more money moved over into the Roth. So you have that, you balance, you have 3 buckets, basically: your taxable account, which you pay capital gains on, pre-tax money, and then for after tax, tax-free growth money. And then there's another thing, like I mentioned, that's terrible, but if spouse passes away, the year after that, you're suddenly in a single tax bracket, and your taxes go up significantly. So that's where, as a family, you need to really do this planning ahead of time to minimize the huge tax bombs of RMDs. Like I said, I don't think the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, but taxes, I do believe downrange are going to go up. They're going to have to, just with our deficits and everything else. But this is the difference of where our tax brackets are now versus what they were prior to the in 2017, prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I mean, look at the difference. These were just even 2024 brackets. It's every tax bracket was higher. So we're in a low tax environment, federal tax environment. So I expect it to go up, and people with a pension and stuff like that, you're always going to be in a somewhat higher tax bracket than people. It's a good problem to have, having an income for life, but you could, if you're not being wise about it, you could end up paying way more taxes than you want to by not being smart now and doing some Roth. And then for people that are military, you'll never be in as low of a tax bracket, assuming you start working after retirement. So Roth it up now, because, and I've got slides, Liz, I got slides in the back too, where I show up through an 05, the difference in how much that tax advantage is, and why you should really be Rothing up. Here's you guys can see these later, but these are the updated federal tax limits. It's that the brackets are the same. They've just updated the numbers some. The deductions are updated as well a little bit. This is what Randy was talking about earlier. This is Medicare, and how significant these changes. Look, I mean, when you look at these are monthly premiums. If you're making a certain amount of money, I mean, that could be a huge additional tax bomb that you're paying for. And they do look back 2 years on that. So it's something, it's kind of surprising, but additional taxes that we pay. We already kind of talked about this, but here's how you do the Roth conversion. Roll a 401k to a traditional IRA, convert the part of the traditional. That's strategic, how much you do based on how much your income is and how much, what tax brackets are. So you contribute, like right now, if you're already in the 22% or 24%, that 24% tax bracket, look at this. Look at how large that is. You could, when you retire, if these tax brackets were still in, you could move a lot of money over to Roth at a 2%, 22 to 24%, that's insignificant. 24 to 32%, that's another 8%. I don't want to touch that. But if you have a decent amount of pre-tax money you want to move over, going to the top of the 24 near there is not a bad idea, depending on your situation. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, and then like I said, as you convert that Roth money, that money has to wait 5 years, but how the money comes out of a Roth, it comes out contributions first, conversions second, earnings third. So you don't have to think about it. So if you've been contributing to a Roth IRA for 20 years, you've got plenty of contributions that are going to come out before you ever need that other stuff. So somebody put in a chat, I don't know what. But yeah, so
gotta go.
Okay, let me see. I'm almost done. Let's see. Okay, yes, some things just how expensive California is. Our tax brackets are the worst, and here's the states that don't tax a military pension. Just some don't have a state income tax on the left, and then all these over here, these next two columns, those are all ones that don't specifically tax their pension, though. Trying to get more veterans to move there. Here's some different tax brackets by state. Look at it, California, up to 13.3%. It's it's expensive. I'm just going to move through these, but if anybody wants to see a specific one, okay. Capital gains rates. This is what's kind of cool. If you didn't have a pension and you stopped working, you could in that brokerage account, say you had a bunch of capital gains, which on the bottom it explains, if you don't know what a capital gain is, you buy a stock for $10, it goes to $15, and then you sell it at least a year and a day later, you pay capital gains taxes by income taxes, which is typically better. But on that $5 of gain. But if you have no income coming in, you could, or you took a sabbatical year, you could sell off and you could have to pay zero taxes up to nearly $50,000 single, or nearly 100,000 in gains and not pay a cent. Pretty amazing. So, okay, and then here's just like additional information just on capital gains and this different states. Washington used to not charge, and they changed that in 2022. Now they're one of the highest, most expensive in terms of capital gains taxes. And that 30.8 surtax kind of sucks because it's not inflation adjusted either. So families that make 250K a year, or individuals 200K, they're subject to an additional nearly 4% surtax, net investment income tax on capital gains. So that brings it up to almost 24%. California capital gains, same thing as ordinary income tax. So whatever bracket you're in, that's what you're paying additional if you sell, securities and make money on it. And that's, you see it says 12.23%, but if you make over $1 million, they tack on an additional percent. That's why it goes from 1% to 13.3%, actually. Okay, Social Security, like this is one of the ways they can change it too. They only, if you make up to 176,100, you get taxed on Social Security at that set 7.65 for that 6.2 plus the 1.45 Medicare. They could, I don't know why they don't just raise that. Like, that's stupid not to. That's quickly how you could add more to Social Security trust fund. But we'll see. They might start pushing out, retirement. If ages, life expectancy continues to increase, they'll probably push out what full retirement age is as well. Which I'd rather them just up the limit here before doing that. But and then if you're self-employed, you've got to pay those taxes. You got to pay double since the employer pays half of your Social Security and Medicare taxes. Any questions there? Okay, this is kind of what I was getting at, why we want to do Roth conversions. I'm not saying it should be a third and a third and a third, but you want some in each bucket. Brokerage, where you're just paying capital gains, you can use that money anytime. Traditional income taxes, and so like if you're contributing to a charity, that's why you don't want all Roth money either, because if you could send, you want to use, if you're donating to a charity, you want to give appreciated securities you haven't paid on, and then you don't pay taxes on it. The charity doesn't pay taxes on it. The only loser is Uncle Sam. So it's if you're charitably minded, it's important to understand, and using a donor advised fund. But this is sadly what too many people have is, and hopefully that's changing, but too many people have this huge, pre-tax bucket, and then they're going to get beat up by those RMDs down the road if they're not smart about doing Roth conversions in the gap years. Okay, you guys, who knows wants to explain what the rule of 72 is? So the rule of 72 is basically how long it takes your money to double. And based on the rate of return you're getting, assuming you don't contribute any more, let's say you got $100,000 in some account and you make average 8% return, which is a good, as you're young, a good average return to expect, invested wisely. If you divide 8, your rate of return, into 72, that's 9. That means it takes 9 years for that money to double. So the higher rate of return, the quicker you double, etc. It doesn't mean go super risky, in my opinion, at all. Just have a nice diversified portfolio. But what I see and what I don't like about typical target date funds, they to me, they go a little too conservative, too fast, and then you miss that last doubling. That last doubling is the most important one, not the one that goes from 100 to 200K, but how about 2 to 4 million or 4 to 8 million? That's the doubling you want. So if your money gets too conservative too fast, you miss the most important one. But okay, and then I know people with kids, you want to take care of your kids, but you got to take care of yourself first. you don't want your retirement to be in your kid's basement, so you've got to take care of yourself first. There is student loans if you need to. There isn't loan for retirement. So, okay, here's homework for you guys. We got 2 weeks if you haven't. One, if you don't have an IRA, or two, if you haven't max contributions for 2024. Go in and do as much as you can. When you select, though, make sure you select 2024, because it'll probably right now default. It'll be like a little, you can adjust. But people accidentally contribute to the wrong year. Max those 24 contributions out before tax day. And any questions here? The other thing is always this new year. I always want people to check their beneficiaries, make sure that's updated properly. And then for subscriptions, every 6 months, you should check your subscriptions. Make sure you're not wasting money there.
Hey, Alan, quick question. I know we're over
Yep.
time. It had to do with the conversion. So if you are late to contributing into the IRA for that tax year, so let's say drop into the traditional account, can you still convert it to the Roth?
Absolutely. You absolutely can. So what she's saying is, okay, I haven't completed my 2024 contributions, right? And you're going to contribute though now before tax day, and you're also contributing 2025 contributions, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You can convert all of it. What you want to do though is, and that's why I like to do lump sum contribution to the traditional IRA, so that I can just do one. So if you had money and you hadn't done, let's say you hadn't put any money in for 2024, but you have right now, you've got $14,000 you can put in for 2024 and 2025. Or you don't. You've got 7,000 for 2024 and 1,000 for 2025. You can put all that in, immediately convert. It doesn't care what year that money's contributed in the traditional IRA. It's just converting money from the traditional IRA to Roth. What you want to do though is just immediately convert it once it settles while it's still cash, instead of investing it and then converting it later, where you might have gains that you'd have to pay taxes on. Does that make sense? Say you put in 7,000 and then you waited and you got a 10% return over the year, then you convert $7,700. You're going to pay taxes on $700, all the gains you got while it was sitting in the traditional IRA.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Anybody else? That probably made some people more confused. Any other questions? I know you gotta have questions. This is not like I'm flying through this stuff way too fast, so I know it's.
I was just wondering, I just sent you an email, and thanks for allowing me to join, Alan, by the way.
Of course.
Greatly appreciate it. I was wondering if later on at some point, if you'd be able to find probably 10, 15 minutes to have a phone call with me.
For a small fee. Yeah.
I just like to run like my situation and what my plan going into the future is, and see what your take is and get any feedback from you.
Yep, and actually, if you go on my website, you can set that up. It's I've got a calendar link right there for a 30-minute call.
Okay, so just set that up through your website?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, appreciate your time. I gotta go myself.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, I know we're running over. Any other questions, or and if you come up with something later, let me know. But I'll post these and the recording up after. So maybe up tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yep, you too. Thanks. Okay. Let me stop sharing. What was? Okay. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Still didn't stop sharing. I thought I did.